Welcome back to the beautiful flower-filled fields of Wildberry Island, here in our Animal Crossing New Horizon adventures. And today we are actually going to try out a very special new kind of adventure. We're going to begin a Q&A series. Finally! I love Q&As, question and answer series. I am obsessed with question and answer series from other people. I listen to all of them because I really love being able to hear everybody's unique stories and hear their unique insights, their experiences, their hopes and dreams. I really think that there's nothing really more beautiful in this world than being able to listen to someone else talk about their hopes and dreams, just the stories that they have experienced. I really love that insight into how they see the world and life and their dreams. So in the spirit of putting out in the world what I hope to see more of, we've been working on preparing questions for a Q&A series in our Patreon and Twitch subscriber Discord for quite a while now. And they have provided me with a huge stack of questions that we're going to be working on, not only here in Wildberry, but in a whole bunch of other places like Zoo Crafting and Plant Tycoon, and basically whatever relaxing game I feel like having going in the background while we go ahead and answer a whole bunch of your guys' questions and hopefully provide some really fun insight into the experiences I've had in life and the way that we work so hard to try to make our pixel biology community a special place to be. And I'm really excited about this. It's just going to be a chill time. Basically, we're not going to be focusing very much on the gameplay, and we'll use these Q&A adventures as an opportunity for me to mostly work on things that I've been putting off and wanting to do in the background. Like today, my goal is to come in and answer questions while clearing the fields of flowers so that hopefully we can start having our island look a little bit more themed for winter and clean it up so we've got more room to be able to host all sorts of fun events on it that hopefully we'll be able to do in the future. As soon as my internet gets a little bit faster again, then hopefully we can start streaming again, but we'll have to see. And basically, just relax. There will be a lot of moments in these Q&A episodes, which will be specials that will show up across, like I said, many of our series, where sometimes we might just go ahead and take in the beauty of the worlds that we have created by just having a little relaxing time, watching the clouds go by and talking about some of the things that I will be answering along the way. And we can just have time to bask in and enjoy the worlds that we have created across many different series. And to keep that all organized, we're going to have two special playlists. One will always be the normal playlist for whatever series we've chosen for the Q&A special of the day, and the other will be the Q&A episodes themselves that will be tucked aside into their own little playlist, so you can find all of the questions and answers tucked in there. And I will be trying very hard to go through the video and have special little markers so that you can see each question in the video description and be able to click on the timestamp to jump to that question if it's one that really intrigues you. And all of these questions are provided by our amazing patrons and Twitch subscribers who provide that extra bit of support that keep our channel constantly growing and going. But if you guys would like to add questions in the comments section for inspiration, they might pick those, or if we run out of their questions, I will be happy to answer some of yours as well. Then go ahead, leave any questions you have down in the comments. I think it'd be a lot of fun to kind of get to know each other better, not only through the answers I provide, but you learn a lot about somebody through the questions that they ask the world. And I actually find the questions that people ask to be almost as interesting as the answers that people provide. And that might be because I ended up marrying a professor who's also a philosopher and a historian. And he is very good at asking questions that actually give you more answers than if he gave you the answer to the question you asked. That's the sign of a good teacher, in my opinion. But these are basically meant to be very relaxing, very chill adventures where we'll transform something. We might spend some episodes doing cooking in Zoo Crafting, for instance. We might spend some episodes just landscaping in Animal Crossing. You guys might see the return of one of my all-time favorite old games that might be older than half of you at this point. Oh my gosh, Plant Tycoon, which is definitely a big favorite. And basically, whenever we have a moment of just needing to work on a few little tasks, or we just want to step into one of the worlds we've created together and just spend some time admiring it, that's what these series will be for. So alright, with all of that said, and hopefully with all of the proper playlists linked and all of the timestamps in the video description, I'll have to work hard to make sure to do all of those things. Let's go ahead and get started with the first question, and while we do that, I am going to get started with cleaning up our island so that we can really be ready for some fresh new adventures. We've got to get rid of the old to-do list because the seasons have changed, the times have changed, I've changed, and I think I'm ready for something fresh and new. Alright, so let me pull up the Ask Your Q&A section of our Patreon and Twitch Discord, and first up is actually Queen G Turtle, who says, "No question, I just wanted to say I love you." And thank you so much, Queen Turtle. You are always so sweet. And I love watching all of your adventures whenever you upload something on your YouTube channel, by the way. I really love being surrounded by so many storytellers, especially here in our community. That's really special to me because there's a lot of people who can make like any kind of fun gameplay when it comes to just enjoying like a good video game, but there's not a lot of storytellers out there. A lot of the people who make Let's Plays tend to focus on either something that's like really popular at the moment, or they have these kinds of personalities where the whole focus is about their personality, and that can be really fun too, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of like, you know, somebody might prefer spicy food or sweet food. And my preference is I really adore being able to go ahead and sit back with stories. So stories are always the thing that I'm looking for. And I love the fact that in our community, especially in our Patreon and Twitch Discord, and also especially in the comments that you guys leave in so many of our videos, I can tell that we are surrounded by fellow storytellers and story lovers, and that just fulfills my heart so much. So there's a little aside about our community. And then Renee asks, and Renee, it's so good to see you. You are definitely, I would say, one of the, how would I put this in a way that is as complimentary as I mean it? Renee has been around since basically the first episodes ever that we have had here on our channel, you guys. And that's so special that we are now coming up on, let's see, it'll be 8 years of our YouTube channel this month, or not this month, what the heck, I meant this year, sorry. It'll be 8 years that we have had our YouTube channel. No, I guess it'll be next January. So we're in 7 years right now. And there are still people I recognize hanging around. There are still people who have been part of our community since those early days when I had no idea what like Let's Plays were, and I just saw somebody like start putting them out on Twitter or on Tumblr, and I was like, hey, that looks really cool and an easier way to tell my stories. And Renee, it just always is so special to me whenever I see you pop around because it brings back those memories of like almost a decade together, and that's really special. But Renee, you actually bring up more of those memories that I really love, talking about The Sims 2, which is how our channel actually got started. Did you guys know that? We started off as a Sims channel, which is why my YouTube name is Siri Sims, if you look on the URL. And Renee asks, outside of the legacy founder for Sims 2, which was Evelyn Eureka, who was your fave character from your Sims 2 Eureka series? And I love that because it's such a throwback, really such a throwback to those days. And I would have to say that my favorite character was Newton Eureka, who was one of the triplets that Evelyn actually ended up having when I had the triplets and quad mod in, and I think that was the first time I had ever had triplets. So it was a huge surprise for me. But I would have to say that he was probably my second favorite, because when Newton, he was one of a triplet set for one thing, and so he was a very special character for that reason. And when Newton was very young, he and his family went camping, which was a really cool thing that you could do in The Sims 2. You can do that in the other Sims games as well, but I was so excited to take his family camping when that expansion came out. You could take them on vacation. And Evelyn was a plant sim, and she decided that her kids needed to be even more in nature than you could be if your mom's like a freaking plant sim. And they went to like the 3 lakes area that you could take your Sims on vacation. And while they were there, everyone was having such a good time. It was so pretty. It was so lovely. I was having a good time. The kids were having a good time. And this was before I made YouTube videos, and it was even before I had Assembler. And then the moment that sealed Newton's fate was the moment when I realized this family was so cool. I had to follow their story for a long time. And that was when little Newton, as a child sim, decided to go stargazing. Because that's a really cute thing to do while you're camping, right? So Newton was stargazing, and lo and behold, he got hit by a satellite, and he died. He died! Like, what? They don't even let kids really die in The Sims 4 anymore. Not like that. And, like, a satellite death? That's a very unique Sims 2 type of death. But he was stargazing, he starts pointing up at the sky, and then the next thing I know, he got destroyed by a satellite. And thankfully, Evelyn was able to go ahead and plead for his life, so he was able to stick around. We did not lose Newton at that time, though it was a very near thing, I will say. And I just thought that was so ironic because Newton, as the scientist, came up, the lore and the legend around it is that he came up with the theory of gravity when an apple fell on his head while he was sitting under an apple tree. And I think that that's way too simplistic for the reality of what probably happened. But I just found it really ironic that then my sim, whose name is also Newton, ends up getting hit by a satellite from the sky. And that was kind of the moment that made the family so unique that, like I said, I just wanted to keep following their story. And that's really important to me because their story is the story that ended up becoming the very first episodes I ever recorded for the YouTube channel. And so I think back to that moment and I think if Evelyn and her triplets and if Newton hadn't been so interesting, would I have stuck with their story long enough that I ended up making a Simbler, which was a Sims themed Tumblr where I would take screenshots and type up little summaries of their story. I really desperately wanted to share how cool I thought this family was with everybody. And I would spend forever taking the perfect screenshot and then typing for hours to write their story. And if that hadn't happened, would I have cared about them enough that when a YouTube video of somebody playing a Sims game in a YouTube video and telling their story that much faster, if the Newton hadn't been that interesting and I hadn't loved that family that much, I don't think when the YouTube videos start showing up of Let's Plays and I was introduced to the idea of Let's Plays and the ability to tell the story of your Sims so much faster and kind of organically, like as the story is unfolding, I don't think I would have gotten into it. So without Newton getting hit by a satellite and dying and then being revived by his mother pleading with like the Reaper, I don't think we would have any of this. I don't think we would have any of these adventures. And I mean, the more you look into that moment of this child sim getting hit by a satellite and me falling in love with their story as a result, I don't know, like, I wouldn't have gotten into YouTube. And if I hadn't gotten into YouTube, I don't think I would have met Chips. I wouldn't be married to my husband. I wouldn't be talking to you guys. We wouldn't have Wildberry. I would probably still have gone back to my nursing program instead of becoming a YouTuber. So that is why Newton Eureka happens to be one of my favorite of all of the Sims that I ever had in my Sims 2 legacy. And if you really want to see some baby Siri episodes, like true blue baby Siri, then you can definitely go and check them out in the very earliest playlist. We have hundreds of playlists now because we're at 9,200 episodes. I'm actually working on getting to 9,300 before the end of the month. That's my goal. And you can go back and you can see baby Siri playing with the Sims 2. And it's really cute. I tell you guys little animal facts at the end of every video because I thought that would be fun. And now it's evolved into actually having a proper end screen like 7 years later. So there's the answer to my favorite Sim. It's kind of, man, it's kind of like one of those butterfly flaps its wings and does it change a typhoon on the other side of the country kind of questions, isn't it? But thank you, Renee. I know that was long-winded, but you know, you brought up some great memories and the very earliest founding of how our community came to be. All right, little sip of tea while we go ahead and sell all of these extra flowers to Tommy and Timmy. And next up we have Wisty Fish. And Wisty Fish, you are so amazing because I love the fact that you are also a mermaid. Like literally, you swim mermaidness. Oops, and we don't want to sell those pink tulips. But you ask, what is a skill or hobby you want to try but you haven't gotten around to? And that is a great question because if you had asked me that a couple months ago, I would have actually said that the skill or hobby I wanted to try but hadn't done was making sourdough bread. And I know that that is such a meme now, like all the millennials making pandemic sourdough bread. I did not grow up in a family that cooked very much, if at all. So learning how to cook was very foreign to me, but also a really exciting concept. And baking bread always seemed kind of like making magic, honestly. Because fresh baked bread is so yummy and beautiful, and I only had one family member, my grandmother, when I was a child, on my mom's side, who ever made homemade fresh bread. And I always thought it was just so magical because it tasted so delicious. And then she would give us like a bunch of butter and jam and just put a fresh piece of bread on a plate, and it was like my favorite thing to eat. To this day, I still love fresh baked bread. And sourdough bread just seemed like intimidating science because you have to worry about hydration levels and you like cultivate wild yeast and you treat your little starter like a pet. So I've been talking about wanting to do sourdough bread for months, but I was still a little intimidated by it. And we even got a Dutch oven for Christmas so that you can cook the bread in a Dutch oven, which makes a really beautiful crisp crust. And finally, my beloved Chips looked at me one night a couple months ago and said, let's just do it. So we looked up the instructions on how to be able to make sourdough bread. We put the water and we put the flour together and you make a paste in a jar. And then you put it to the side and in a few days it starts bubbling and you're like, I don't think you should eat something you've left out for a few days and is bubbling. But that is the fermentation process as you start capturing the wild yeast out of the air and you put it into the little mixing that you've made, and then you end up with a starter, a little starter of wild yeast that you can mix into your bread, your flour and water, because that's all you need for sourdough bread. And voila! You end up with a very unique flavor of bread because each sourdough starter is going to be based off of different types of wild yeast floating around in the air, and each one will taste a little bit differently. And so if you asked me a couple months ago, I would have said that's what I really wanted to do that I hadn't gotten around to. But we've gotten around to doing it. And in the tradition that many people have with their sourdough starters, especially if you ever look for communities, if you think our community of like storytellers is interesting, definitely check out like the bread baking communities online because there are really hardcore people out there who are very much into making the perfect sourdough bread. And those communities are a whole different world of interesting, but a tradition among them is to name your sourdough starters. And so I told you guys about that on a live stream in Animal Crossing ages ago, and somebody suggested a perfect punny name for a sourdough starter, Little Bread Riding Hood. And sure enough, Chips and I have actually named our sourdough starter Little Bread Riding Hood, and we praise her every time we're able to make a really delicious loaf of bread, just like you would praise a pet. And maybe that's a sign that we really should get a pet by now. But we talk about feeding Little Bread Riding Hood, feeding her once a week for her weekly feeding. We basically treat it like a pet. It's wild yeast, but it's our pet. And then we get to make delicious bread out of it too, which is just a win-win situation all around. And yes, I mean, if you, the reasoning for why we don't have a pet yet is complex. But every now and then I'll look up from having like talked to the plants or talked to our wild yeast that we've named and we treat as a pet, and I'll think, man, we really need to get a pet one day. We can't right now because we have no idea where we're going to be living like in a year or so, due to waiting for my beloved Chips to finish up his PhD, but we really probably need a pet if you start talking to your wild yeast and cooing over it and telling it, oh, good girl, you've grown so much. I'm gonna get such yummy, like, loaves off of you. So there's one hobby. Let me think. Another hobby I do want to start trying to draw and do art again, which I used to be really into. My mom loves to tell a story. When I was little, I would introduce myself as, "Hello, I'm Sage, I am 3, and I am going to grow up and be an artist." And I think that becoming a storyteller still counts as being an artist. But I would like to start drawing again. Oh, one skill that I don't have that is going to seem completely unexpected to some people, but I really want to do, is actually rock climbing. Not terribly high. Like, I really just want to get into, like, rock wall climbing more than anything. I don't want to get into actual rock climbing because I don't want to fall and, like, break all my arms. But I would really love to do rock wall climbing, to the point where I keep teasing Chips that one day, whenever we get our little homestead in the Appalachian Mountains, as we dream of being able to do someday, I really, really want to be able to go ahead and get a rock climbing wall in the back. But he says I have to actually try it once first before we can go ahead and build a rock climbing wall in our backyard. Our theoretical backyard we'll have one day. So there's that. And then, let me see. Oh, let's go ahead. And we have a little interruption by Sky in our Q&A because she wanted a new planter. Of course I'm going to go ahead and give it to her. It's Sky. We love Mama Sky. And then, you know what? Ask me the question about, like, skills or hobbies again in a few days, and I might have a whole new answer for you, because I'm constantly looking up new things. So I'm very happy to answer that. Would be happy to answer it again, because I have a feeling I'll have a different answer in the future. But alright, and then Wistyfish, you also ask, I know you like to play games slowly. Do you ever speed through games without meaning to? No. I always tend to play games slowly. I always have and probably always will. And it's because I just love the immersion in a world. For some people, when they play a game, they're in it to win it. They want to be able to get into the game. They want to be able to, like, get the max stats. They want to win at the game. For me, when I play games, it's because I want to be immersed in that world. I want to be really, like, caught up in the story of it and making up stories about all of the characters. So I'm not in a rush, because what happens when you finish a game? Like, you have that brief moment of feeling really excited and accomplished, and then you have no more game. Then you need to get another game. So for me, I've never really rushed through games, because what's the point of rushing? For some people, maybe that feeling of accomplishment is what they're all after, and that's the point of playing the game in the first place. But for me, it's the point of being caught up in that story world, immersed in it, and just really appreciating and admiring the way that the stories keep growing around you. So I can't think of any game I've actually gone too fast through. I try really hard to be nice to myself and tell myself that I don't go too slow through games either. There's actually a group called Great Games Played Slowly, and they have kind of the same philosophy. For a lot of people, getting a chance to be able to sit down and play a game is the chance to immerse yourself in a different world that you can control more, that is kind and gentle. That's one of the reasons I think Animal Crossing is so popular, is because a lot of people have really hard days. Like, a rough day at work really is offset a lot if you're able to go into your little Animal Crossing village and everyone's nice to you and you can just spend time happily in that world. And for me, that's the kind of feeling I've gotten from most of the games that I've played. So yeah, I'm a slow game player, but I think that's because you have to remember, games aren't... The joy that you can get from a game is not just in quote-unquote winning the game. It's also from being part of the world of the game and part of the world of the stories around it that you can create. Not to mention, like, games do different things for different people. My beloved Chips, after all, does not enjoy story-based games at all. Like, he doesn't enjoy open sandbox games at all. To me, those are story-based games. But he prefers story-based games because he really wants to kind of be told a story and follow along and be in the story. And then, like my brother-in-law really, really adores games where you can like be a part of a team and you're playing with your friends. So games are like anything where people are going to get different experiences out of it. And for me, like, I end up playing really slowly because my experience is to try to be part of a different world for a little while, to see things in a different way and maybe take back some insight or some of the peace and calm that come with being like in an Animal Crossing world. When I was growing up, like things were really difficult at home for a lot of reasons, but things could get really, really hard. And one of the things that gave me a lot of, just reassurance, and one of the things that gave me a lot of hope was stepping into a Sims world. And even though things were chaotic at home and they were chaotic at school and I was having a hard time in a lot of ways in life, I could make my Sims happy. And that's one of the reasons I love like story-based games, or like the sandbox games, where I could just I could change the world. And when I would finish playing those, I felt like I could look around myself with fresh eyes. And then even though things were so hard and so difficult and so far outside of my control in real life, being able to affect my Sims' lives, for instance, and make their life really good made me think, okay, let's be a little more open-minded. What are ways that I could actually make my life better? And I remember being in high school and really struggling, and my family was really struggling at that time. And I would some days just sit there and I would ask myself, okay, what is my aspiration? Like right now, if I had an aspiration like a Sim, what would it be right at this moment? And if I had wants like a Sim, if I had needs, and that was really important for me, especially as a preteen and a teenager, I would ask myself like, okay, if I was a Sim, and what would my needs look like right now? Because when you're a teenager, you just feel like the whole world can be out of control sometimes. And unfortunately, that's actually very normal because it is just part of your, like, your body and your biology just kind of freaking out and trying to figure out how to balance all of these new and confusing hormones. And so I would have those moments of like, I can't think straight, I just feel really strongly right now, what do I do? And for me, like playing The Sims and then seeing how my Sims had needs, they had aspirations, they had these wants, and fulfilling those would calm them down or make their life better or help them work on skills. That's where like focusing on those things started for me in real life, because I would just pretend I was a Sim and I'd be like, oh, my hunger need is low and I need to eat even though I didn't think I needed some food. Or like if I really just felt listless and was starting to get super depressed, I would ask myself, okay, what's actually my aspiration here? And then I would try to find like a little thing I could do to build towards my aspiration and imagine that I was getting aspiration points. And so for me, like games could also be a very important teaching tool, even when like not just teaching like facts, but also teaching me kind of like, oh, like I said, a way to see the world, a way to see life. So anyway, that's why wow, that went not where I thought it would. But that's why I don't care if I play games pretty slowly, because I think I get out of them something much, much different than what they were intended to offer or what other people might get out of video games. But I think we all do on some level, and maybe we just don't talk about it enough. Like a desire to tell stories, or like I know my sister loves working in Animal Crossing because it really inspires her for her passion for being able to do interior design and visit with people and give them gifts. So yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to play games. And then also, Wisty Fish, you ask, what is my favorite Pokemon and why? That question actually changes every single day. Just like the answer to that question changes every single day, just like the answer to the question of what is my favorite animal changes literally every single day. It depends on which one I'm studying at the time. So today, my favorite Pokemon, I think, let me think about this. I think my favorite Pokemon today is a tie between Rowlet, which is often one of my favorite Pokemon, because I've been looking at some adorable pictures of Rowlet back when he was super popular, when Pokemon Sun and Moon just came out, and there was a Tumblr called The Daily Rowlet, which would just draw Rowlet doing adorable things in different styles every single day. And Rowlet just makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside all of the time. But the other Pokemon that I'm really into right now is actually that Aurora Pokemon, whose name I can't remember because I've never had one before, that looks like a Brontosaurus, like a long neck sauropod dinosaur, and an Aurora Borealis had a baby. And I love it, and I want to be able to add it into my team in our Pokemon series, and I want to be able to add it into our Pokemon Ranger series, and just imagine what its biology could be, because speculative biology is like my thing. That's why we're the Pixel Biologist, because I'm totally obsessed with speculative biology, which is basically making up ecologies and biology facts and thinking about how fantasy creatures and fictional creatures would operate in an ecosystem. I love doing that. That's why we're the Pixel Biologist, and I love doing that with Pokemon, and that's the Pokemon I'm currently pretty obsessed with. So again, that answer too will also probably change by tomorrow. But alright, now that I have rambled on about those things, thank you, Wisty Fish, let's go ahead and move on. Oh, Cranston's wearing the cutest outfit today. We'll focus on that later. Oh, okay. And then Annie, you ask if I could choose to speak to a family of animals, like the Canidae or Felidae like family, who would I choose and why? And I would speak to birds. I would absolutely speak to the aves family, because birds get to go so many different places, not only around the world, but they get to see the world from the ground all the way to the tops of trees and then all the way up into the sky. So they have all sorts of unique perspectives that they can really like visually see. Chips and I were actually thinking the other day about how for us, the world is really kind of in a 2D formation. For humans, you can try to think about the world in a more like 3D way, like going up and out as well. But really, we're kind of stuck to like the horizon because we walk on 2 feet, we're on the ground, we don't really climb trees very well or very often. And so we're really sort of focusing on just what we can see physically around us as we stand. But a bird gets to think not only about the ground, but they get to think about being up in trees, above trees. They get to think about like being in the sky. They get to cover huge distances. I mean, if I was talking to birds, I would be able to talk, like if I talked to a hummingbird, for instance, I would be talking to a little creature who is like as small as my thumb, smaller maybe, whose heartbeat is just ridiculous. And a little hummingbird in its life is going to travel all the way from like the middle parts of the North American continent, across the Gulf Coast, and then to tropical jungles. Like this tiny little hummingbird. I just think that's amazing. And then there's other bird species like the spoonbill. There's some shorebirds that travel past like 2 entire continents. That just blows my mind. So I would love to talk to them because birds are adventurers. They can see the world from different perspectives. They have song. I'm in love with them. So that would be the family I would want to talk to. And I know most people would say you would want to talk to like the Felidae or Canidae families so you could talk to cats or dogs, which I think would be really fun. But I feel like cats and dogs have a lot to say to us already, even without the ability to physically speak to them. So they communicate quite well. But I would love to know what a hummingbird was thinking. And then Melody, you asked, and this question is actually so old, it's from last year, but if I could, what are my favorite games, of the year? And my favorite games for 2020 are definitely Animal Crossing New Horizons, absolutely. And this might surprise some of you guys because you won't know that I played this for weeks avidly, but Crusader Kings 3. I love Crusader Kings 3. I played it so much. I got it because Chips was playing it and I was looking over his shoulder and my eyes would just get bigger and bigger and bigger as I was like, oh, there's a lot of story in this game. Oh my gosh. And there's a lot of random events that can happen. And the modding community is big and immediately jumped on top of doing really cool things in it. So Crusader Kings 3 is also one of my top games of 2020. Animal Crossing New Horizons. And then When the Past Was Around. When the Past Was Around is just a game that has stuck with me in ways I didn't expect, because last year was really scary for a lot of people in a lot of ways, and a lot of us needed to come to terms with the idea of what happens if we lose someone forever. And When the Past Was Around was a game that arrived right when that fear was really reaching kind of a fever pitch in my life with my family and some of their health issues that were going on. And it just presented the idea that when you do lose someone who you love, they're not actually lost forever. They're part of the song of your heart and your spirit, and they will become part of the songs of other people whose lives that you affect forever. And that brought me so much peace. And I love the music. The puzzles were really hard for me. I'm not good at puzzle games, so I did need help. I had to look up a few hints on how to work on the puzzle games and When the Past Was Around. But the story was so beautiful. I just sat there and cried when I finished it. And cried and cried and cried. And then I went and I hugged Chips. I called my dad. And now that it sounds really weird, but it took away so much of my fear of losing someone, because I just know that they'll always be with me, and that I'll always be with the people that I talk to, and that the people that I talk to will always end up having a part of the people that I love as a result. And I just thought that that was really beautiful. So When the Past Was Around, it's a small little indie game, beautiful, beautiful art, beautiful, beautiful music, and it definitely is just at the very top of the list, actually. But other than that, let me think. Other games, I mean, I play so many games for our channel that sometimes I have a hard time remembering the ones I really do love. But I loved the expansions for Planet Zoo. I absolutely adored the expansions that came out, because the penguins, I had no idea I wanted penguins in my life in Planet Zoo that bad, but I did. I love the koalas. I love the cassowaries. I guess I really am into birds. I just adore birds in general. So those all made me very happy. And then, let's see, the expansion for Pokemon also made me happy. And Ooblets! Oh, Ooblets. Oodles of Ooblets. That also, I just needed something that ridiculous and over the top and silly last year. So that was definitely one of my favorite games too. The Star Stable updates that happened were fun. A lot of these games aren't new. They've been around for a long time, but they're still very vibrant and they still have a lot going for them. So yeah, those are some of my favorite games. Raft had an update, but I haven't even had time for the update. I just was having fun with the normal Raft. And the Stardew Valley update, which you guys have started to see recently. Oh my gosh, that came out like last year, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I keep telling Chips that I just hope that Concerned Ape has basically made his millions off of Stardew Valley and continues to do so, and is so happy and content that he might just continue to update it the rest of his life, because I will be right there enjoying Stardew Valley. Like, just imagine that, guys, like in 10 years. It'll be like, oh, it's the 17th anniversary of our Pixel Biology channel, guys. Chips and I finally have that little homestead we wanted, and here's like Stardew Valley update 29. We're absolutely going to do this. We're going to be farming on the moon. So like it didn't even have to be new games. There were a lot of fun old games that I enjoyed. Oh, and then a game that Chips and I played a ton of that we really loved is actually Clubhouse games for the Switch. He and I just find it so wonderful to be able to relax at the end of the day and play some board games together without actually having to have the board games. It's like a minimalist dream, and it makes it so easy to just pick it up and play a few rounds of President or never play him in Connect 4, you will always lose. The only time I won in Connect 4 was one day when he was distracted. After like dozens and dozens of times. Also, I learned how to play chess this year on the Clubhouse games, and I also learned that he's very good at chess, and I will also lose at that, but I'll do my best. So those were some of my favorite games, but I actually would love to hear what some of your guys' favorite games are in the comments. That would mean the world to me. so that I could figure out some more fun games to play to share even more adventures with you guys. So do please leave some comments with the games of the last year that you loved, that maybe gave you a special little boost to get through what was really a very difficult and odd year. But all right, let me go ahead and we'll look at the next question. I'm getting through these slowly and surely, but getting through them. And then Ziva, you actually ask, what is your favorite game soundtrack to listen to and why? Ooh, that's a good one. So I listen to the Stardew Valley soundtrack like nonstop, and I have so many different people I follow on YouTube who do Stardew Valley mixes. And I love like the rainy day mixes with Stardew Valley. That's one of my favorites. I also love the Zelda music. I one day dream of being able to play Zelda, like, oh no, I forgot what it is. You guys know which Zelda, the newest Zelda. I am so embarrassed. I can't remember the name right now. Breath of the Wild. There we go. There we go. My brain is full of flowers right now, so it took me a second to remember. But I love the Breath of the Wild soundtrack and listen to that mixed with like campfire crackling pretty often. The When the Past Was Around soundtrack is also one of my favorites. And I haven't played it yet, but the My Time at Portilla soundtrack is really wonderful and really fun to listen to. Harvest Moon, the old Harvest Moon before, you know, Natsume did that thing. But Harvest Moon soundtracks bring back a lot of nostalgia for me, especially the winter soundtracks from 64. Harvest Moon 64, like my favorite thing ever. So I listen to a lot of those, but I would actually love to hear more game soundtracks that people enjoy and love, because I actually find it really relaxing to listen to it in the background while I'm doing chores. I actually turn on Sims 3 soundtrack music whenever I do chores, because somehow it just makes my chores go by better. Maybe it's like Mary Poppins, like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. For me, listening to Sims music when I need to do something kind of mundane and mindless, like doing a bunch of chores, actually puts me like in build buy mode. And moving things around in my room just becomes part of like kind of playing The Sims. So that's another one of my favorite soundtracks to listen to. One soundtrack that I've tried to enjoy but is not relaxing to listen to because it's so pumped up is actually the Pokemon Sword and Shield soundtrack. Every now and then I'll listen to a Nintendo music mix that has that soundtrack in it, and it's kind of amazing how aggressively active the Pokemon Sword and Shield soundtrack is. So that's one soundtrack in the Nintendo mix that does not relax me. I wish it did, because it's really fun and I love the game. But when you take the music out of the context of the game, holy cow, it's like you have an entire rock band in your ears, and it may be good for running, but not good for relaxing. And then Bad Mom, you ask, what are some of my favorite features in New Horizons? And I actually think that's a great question to end off today on. I am amazed that we have only cleaned so much of the island, by the way. I really thought we'd be able to get more done in an entire day of talking and going over questions and cleaning. But at least we've gotten a good start so that now we can start thinking about our island as being more than flowers. But my favorite things about New Horizons, it's beautiful. It's just a really charmingly, beautifully made game. I feel like I'm actually stepping into a little world and out of my head into my heart when I play New Horizons. I love how easy it is to be able to visit with people. When they were talking about the multiplayer, I remembered rolling my eyes a little bit because I am a solo player through and through. I barely even play games like this with chips because I'm kind of busy and immersed in my own little world. So I didn't think I would be that intrigued by all of the multiplayer features. And actually, it has been one of the things that has absolutely enchanted me about New Horizons, because it has given me such a wonderful way to see the creativity of others come to life, for how they are able to decorate their islands, their homes, for the things that they create. That is so special to me. I love seeing that in people. So I love New Horizons for how easy it has made sharing your creations, sharing the things that inspire you and make you happy with other people. And I also love how easy it makes it to share kindness, to be able to easily send gifts to people like every day, to be able to clap and cheer them on. You just are able to be so nice to others. And I love seeing that facilitated in this world that you get to build, in your very own little video game world. So that is another feature I love about New Horizons. I also love all of the updates that have been going on lately. I was really worried that after the game came out, they would kind of peter off the updates and not do anything that's really new for New Horizons. But they've been doing great. They've been like releasing updates and putting out items that have never been in an Animal Crossing game before, and also items that share a lot of culture around the world. So it's not just like one specific culture gets all the attention. It's not like one specific festival gets all the attention. They have been pulling in items that really celebrate more of a worldwide diversity. There's definitely room for more, for sure. But I just hope that we keep that going. And I hope that maybe we get some new festivals and we get new events and it won't just be like the same thing on repeat forever. And it makes me excited that it does seem like it's a living, organically changing game and experience. And that's really fun. The museum is definitely one of my favorite features of New Horizons too. But alright, so I think that's enough for today because I've rambled on for a very long time now. I really thought I would get more done, but I think we have made a bit of a dent in the flower fields of Wildberry, which is going to make it a lot easier for me to dive in here and really be able to go ahead and create some new events on our island. And hopefully, if my internet will ever get back to working the way it's supposed to, and that's why we haven't had streams, just FYI, is because our internet is actually so slow I struggle to even upload video, and it's only 1/7 the strength I need to stream, so I physically cannot stream right now. But alas, during pandemic times we've been told by our providers that we just have to sit tight because they can't fix it right now or give us any better. So we'll have to see how that works out. But I'm really glad we came up with something this fun and different, being able just to answer some of the Q&A things to make the time go by. And I will try my best to get through the big pile of questions that our wonderful patrons and Twitch subscribers have actually provided. And you guys are more than welcome to leave questions, just little Q&A questions, down in the comments that we can draw some inspiration from as well. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this beautiful, beautiful day on Wildberry Island. I have missed it. I feel so good to have accomplished some of the tidying up and the cleaning up that this island really needs. And I hope that all of you have just had a nice little relaxing afternoon with me. Alright, let's go ahead and open up this present to wrap up our adventure today. Neon tights! Delightful. What color? Oh wow, they're green. Huh. Okay, I'll take them. But alright, thank you guys for joining me on the beginning of our new adventure and expedition into a Q&A series. I imagine I'll do a lot of the episodes in Animal Crossing, but there are other things that we'll also be adventuring in the future. So check out the video description for the link to the actual playlist for the Q&A as well, because it'll probably jump across a lot of different games. And hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot more next time, and we'll continue to transform the island while we do so. So alright guys, I'll see you all later. Stay curious. Oh my gosh, is that bug? That bug was pushing the snowball! That was the cutest thing I've ever seen. We're gonna have to get to the bottom of that too. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye!